Jolla, a phone you've probably never heard of and will likely never buy. Made by a Finnish company, the Jolla phone was released in 2013, and it doesn't come with Android, but Jolla's own operating system known as Sailfish, which is developed to this day. This phone apparently received software support till the end of 2020, 7 years after it first went on sale. I had never heard of this device until I saw one for sale with a distinctive permanently locked banner at the top of the screen. Intrigued, I went ahead and purchased one, having no idea what I was getting myself into. I purchased this one for around $34 US. The only other example I could find online currently was one from Ukraine, listed for $500 US. With it unpacked, you can see it definitely looks like many smartphones from this time period. Let's get it switched on so we can see what's wrong. The phone powers up to the lock screen with a PIN entry field. The only thing accessible is the emergency call dialer, which has the single worst font and color combination I've ever seen. I surely hope there isn't an emergency because good luck dialing the right numbers. What's equally as hard to read is the message saying the phone is permanently locked. My guess is the PIN was entered incorrectly too many times, so it'll just need a reset. For like every other phone on the planet, this consists of holding down a button combination and either selecting reset from a recovery menu or using the company's software to reflash the OS. But not Jolla and their truly open operating system. It's hidden and requires some hacker-level skills to access. Thankfully, they wrote a guide. We first need to prepare the phone for recovery mode. This is done by removing the battery, holding down the volume down button while attaching the battery back into the phone, and then pressing and holding the power button until the phone vibrates. Once I complete this maneuver, the phone will now permanently be displaying the Jolla logo. At this point, the phone is broadcasting a telnet server. For both Windows and Mac users, there's extra software required before we can connect. For the Mac, that software is horrendous. No, seriously, that's what it's called. The guide shows macOS Mavericks, so that's what I used, downloading the last compatible version of the software. Once installed, I could initiate the connection via telnet, the default server address being 10.42.66.66. But of course, this didn't work. At a closer look at the guide, it specifically said I needed horrendous version 9 or newer, which isn't even compatible with Mavericks, the version shown in the guide. So I tried all of this again on macOS High Sierra, with the newer version of the horrendous software. But the result was worse. macOS High Sierra has no clue what telnet even is. So I'll need to find a way to reinstall it. I installed Homebrew, which apparently allows me to install the required components. However, it fails, saying I need to install Xcode first. At this point, it had been several hours for something other phones take only a matter of seconds. But with Xcode installed, everything should work. But once again, it errored out. I gave up and booted a live USB of Linux, where I could telnet directly from the terminal without any plugins or software. Finally, we had access. All that hard work is going to pay off, now that we have access to the factory reset option. Well, that's what I thought until it asked for a PIN code to begin the reset, something the Jolla guide had failed to mention. Having no idea what the code is, I reconnected the phone as I couldn't escape the command. At this point, it locked itself for 24 hours and closed the connection. But I found a workaround, simply removing the battery and starting the process over again. But any option likely to help us requires some special PIN to access, so I've completely wasted several hours of my life I'll never get back. But still determined, I searched far and wide online for a solution. With a locked bootloader, the only option is to install the factory image. Something a phone marketed truly open should have available, right? Wrong. Jolla to this day has never released a firmware image despite selling them for third-party phones like some of Sony's Xperia lineup. Everything I found online said the only way to reset the phone is to pay Jolla for the reflash, which was apparently €40 at the time, plus international shipping both ways, all to be without a phone for about a month. Essentially paywalling, reflashing the phone. For a 9-year-old phone, I don't even know if this is a service they still offer, nor do I believe it's worth the effort. So it seems the only footage of the OS is going to be from Jolla's own introduction video from 2013. They might stop us from resetting the phone, but they can't stop me from taking it apart. under the back cover is a series of pins that were part of their other half feature, allowing for accessories to be attached like a keyboard on this Jolla phone listed on eBay. To access the internals, we need to remove 11 Torx screws from the midframe. With the screws removed, it's only a few clips between us and the internals of the phone. The plastic midframe houses an antenna and the vibration motor. As for the rest of the internals, there isn't too much, just a motherboard with most of the internals attached to it, even the buttons and charge port. At the bottom is some antenna components and a speaker. An interesting thing I've not seen before is a mechanical switch for detecting whether the back is removed. There's only one more screw before the metal frame detaches. I'm not sure whether its use is structural or just for aesthetics, but it's easy to remove regardless. With that, it's time to remove the motherboard. There's one more screw and several flex cables that need to be detached before we can lift it free from the phone. The front-facing camera is also adhered to the frame, so we need to be careful whilst removing it. You can see the adhesive has covered the camera when it's been removed. I need to ensure it's repositioned correctly before we reinstall the motherboard. But before we do that, I want to get a proper look at it. It's very similar to a Galaxy phone of the time, like a Galaxy S3 or S4. One thing I did notice was the letters EVT printed on the SIM tray board and DVT printed on the motherboard. These stand for Engineering Validation Test and Design Validation Test, indicating this is a pre-production motherboard. However, the sticker inside the phone states this phone was assembled in January of 2014, suggesting Jolla used prototype hardware in production units. Now that's something I've never seen before. This phone definitely has a lot of quirks, but even given its age, it's still interesting to see inside a low production, uncommon phone. But with not much else to see, it's time to reassemble the Jolla phone. Something I picked up throughout this repair was there's two types of screws used to secure the midframe. Both the same length, but one has a larger head and coarser thread. So you do need to keep track of the screws if you were to repair one of these devices. With all the screws fastened into place, I can attach the battery and back panel. And we're done. So this is it, the Jolla phone. My original plans of showing the unique Linux-based OS were crushed by a lockdown reset option. But that didn't stop us from taking a look inside this strange phone. It's a shame that it will remain forever bricked thanks to Jolla's not-so-open phone design. Again, another product questioning the concept of ownership. And on that note, this has been a Hugh Jeffries video. If you like what you saw, consider subscribing and check out the playlist for tech that's not what it seems. And if you're looking for any used devices, be sure to check out my online store, link for which is down in the description. That's all for this video, and I'll catch you guys next time.